So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this session today. This talk is going to be about a journey. It's a journey that started several years ago, and it is indeed a journey that is still in progress. And I'm talking about the journey of Telecom to adopt cloud-native principles and technologies in order to accelerate our innovation and to be able to deliver new types of service experiences to end users. And to achieve the vision, we believe that our journey is going to continue to require open source community efforts while we evolve this space together. So my name is Oliver Smith. I work for a company called MATRIXX Software, founded here in the San Jose area. And for a little bit of context, we are a CNF vendor, and we're exclusively focused on delivering 3GPP compliant converged charging solution. We've been engaged both within the CNCF and also within LFN on a number of different projects. And really, in short, our desire as a company has been to both adopt cloud native, but also to give back to the community and work together in terms of finding solutions to some of the challenges that remain. With me today is Watson from Vulk Cooperative, and I'll ask him just to give a quick introduction of himself as well.
Yeah, I'm Watson with Vulk Cooperative, one of the founders of what used to be called the CNF Test Suite, now the CNTI Test Suite or Test Catalog, and I've been writing software for about 30 years.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we've got a little agenda for you, no surprise there. We want to touch on some key items today. Please feel free at any point in time. We want this to be interactive, so ask questions. If the questions get too complex or a little bit too deep, we'll, of course, ask the park, and you can always talk with us afterwards. But we do encourage you to ask questions. Today, we want to give you an overview and a little bit of background around a new initiative within LFN called CNTI, and it stands for Cloud Native Telecom Initiative. We're going to talk about our focus areas, our goals, and we really want to talk about our value proposition. What can we offer to not only the CNTI community, but the rest of the community and the industry as a whole? Since we're a new initiative, we're going to be telling you a little bit about what we've been doing since we started, which was in January of this year. And then, of course, we'll share a little bit of a preview or some thoughts about where we want to be going for the remainder of this year in terms of our aspirations. So let's get started. So how did CNTI come to be? Many of you will know that over the last few years, there have been a number of open source activities in Linux Foundation, not only in LFN, but both in CNCF and LFN, projects that are, of course, evolving and addressing the needs of cloud-native networking. In CNCF, you may recall some of the different initiatives like the TUG, the Telecom User Group, the Cloud Native Network Function Working Group, CNF Test Suite, as Watson was mentioning, and the CNF certification program. Likewise, under LF networking, we have a number of projects which are probably familiar to you, including Aniket, specification of a Kubernetes-based telco cloud, ONAP, Nefio, looking at different aspects of orchestration, lifecycle orchestration of network functions, cloud-native network functions, and there's many others. What our goal with CNTI and the forming of CNTI is really to bring together the cloud-native expertise from CNCF, and the telecom know-how within, networking know-how within LFN, under one roof, under LFN. So with all these different efforts, how can CNTI help cloud-native networking? Our goal really is, I think, quite simple. We want to increase the alignment across different communities and projects in our industry in terms of use of foundational cloud-native and Kubernetes-native best practices. We believe that if you increase and expand that usage, we can help improve interoperability and we can reduce fragmentation. In the end, what we're trying to do is to help the end users, operators, to realize the value that they have come to expect and desire from cloud native. And if you look at a couple of examples, it tells us we still have work to do. The end of last year, Q3, Q4, the NGMN published the Cloud Native Manifesto. It's an operator-authored document, publication, describing some of the remaining challenges and some of the things that the operators are really looking to see and asking for help from different communities, including open source. Following on to that, we also had a white paper from Linux Foundation, taking a deeper dive, if you will, on many of those same areas that were being described in the Cloud Native Manifesto, talking about potential ways how that could be resolved. So it's really up to the community. We're looking at the community, looking for solutions. How can we help each other to move this forward? So what does the CNTI do? We have 3 focus areas: best practices, test catalog, and we have a beta for a certification program. I've already mentioned when we look at all 3 of these, they're standalone, but they're all related. So we look at best practices. How should we solve specific challenges for networking in a cloud-native fashion? Testing catalog is really vendor-neutral, open-source test catalog. Consume the tests. You can use these to validate whether or not your application, your network function is following best practices. You might even use that in a certification program. And then lastly, the certification program that we are looking at in terms of beta, it really is about how do we make this simple? Simple in the terms of self-execution, simple in community reviewed. And we want to make it so that this is something that any network function running on certified Kubernetes can be tested against. And this is really to encourage cross-cloud compatibility. And as I mentioned, each one of these focus areas, should have a standalone value, meaning if you're interested in best practices and tests, but you don't have any particularly strong desire for certification, that's okay. You should be able to find and work in the areas and contribute to the areas that matter most to you. So this slide here is just to give you a little bit of a sense of what our value proposition is. And if you look at it on the left-hand side, kind of a big database with best practices and test catalog, the idea is that those are available for consumption by a variety of different downstream users, communities, projects. As an example, Aniket and Silva, or LFN projects, LF Europe projects, we have been working with them in the past. As I mentioned, some of this work started in the CNCF. So there is a test catalog today, which is being utilized in those projects. We have conversations with other LFN projects like Nefio about they're looking to orchestrate network functions, cloud-native network functions, and so we're looking to see if there's best practices that we can also work with them on. CNF vendors and infra vendors. Well, as I mentioned, I work for a CNF vendor, and we actually use the CNF, or I should say the CNTI test suite in our pipeline. So we're constantly, as we're building and developing new capabilities, new features, we're running this against our software, validating for ourselves that we're doing things according to best practices. I already mentioned CNTI certification, so that would, of course, be another downstream potential. And then we have service providers who may also, and have used in the past, the test suite, test catalog, in order to, in discussions that they're having with vendors about how cloud-native their particular function is. So before we move on here, we said we'd try to make this a little bit interactive, so I'm going to turn it over a little bit to Watson. Put a question out for you guys because we want to hear a little bit from you as well.
Yeah, and I'll bring the mic over for anyone. But basically, I'd like to ask what people think cloud native means. And there's really no wrong answers before I go to the next slide. And then, whatever's the first thing that comes to mind. If it's not something you think can be defined, let me know. But does anybody want to take a stab at cloud native? I'm going to bring the mic over.
Yeah. I'll throw the monkey wrench in.
Thanks,
I think a lot of people think of cloud native as, it's Kubernetes and it's CNCF. And I actually have a broader definition. I think it's whatever whether it be a VM or a serverless, light little widget or a Lambda or whatever, that runs only in the cloud. It's native to the cloud. So it can be a VM, actually, and it can be a little Lambda widget. But the point is it's designed specifically to be optimized for running in a cloud infrastructure.
It's excellent. Anyone else? First thing that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be, completely correct. There is no correct. Anyone want to take a stab? Here we go. I know we got some strong opinions.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues with cloud native is that there is no correct definition. So there is the definition from CNCF, which is the second version of the definition from CNCF already. So it's very difficult to tell what is cloud native, and maybe best definition is the best. Like cloud native is something what is designed to run in the cloud. That of course you can translate this to different properties like horizontal scalability and blah blah blah, and you can use this definition. What I really do not like, this Kubernetes native. Like cloud native is what you can run in Kubernetes, and if you think about it, that is also a moving target, because in Kubernetes early versions you couldn't have a state. So cloud native, you were not cloud native if you had a state. Now you are not cloud native if you have multiple network connected to a pod. Yeah. But maybe in some releases from now we will have that also in the cloud native definition. So it's a question what we cannot answer, I think.
These are the best answers here. Does anyone else want to?
Another nuance. I think Gergely's onto something, but there's another nuance, which is cloud native for telco might in fact be a different definition than cloud native for a web server. As you well know, the cloud was designed specifically and optimized to support web services and web services, and it does a great job at web services. But it doesn't do such a great job for telcos.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem, that it is real, and Kubernetes is also originally was designed to run like normal workloads, while telco workloads are not normal in the sense that they need to fulfill requirements which require them to use particular technologies. They have to have access to the hardware, so sometimes they have to break these abstractions, just because all of these abstractions mean additional latency or load, and sometimes so it's difficult because really we are fighting with physics here, while in an IT workload you just have to provide some answer sometimes.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, it also depends how deep we want to go with defining what is cloud native. It could be from really basic things, like application scales okay, and it can be also deeply application related. For example, if application uses caching correctly, or optimizes their performance using caching. It could be also, let's say, advanced cloud native aspect.
Yeah.
Anyone else? This is the...
Yep. All right, I'm going to move.
Yeah, I mean, so we heard... Got some time here. How much time do we have?
Not too much. Yeah, we just a little bit, so
yeah.
5 minutes maybe.
Yeah, so here, this is getting into, and there's different definitions of cloud native, is what we just brought up, and then there are special use cases within telco. Just hardware acceleration alone can start, breaking some things, just like what Gergely was bringing up. Here we have drawn heavily from the CNCF community. So these are the different categories and projects and their best effort. And it's going to be optimized for more enterprise, I would just say. And, right?
Just
Go ahead.
look at that diagram.
Yep.
Look what's missing. Seriously. Yeah. So what do telcos do? They run networks. Notice, there is no little blurb for network.
The network. Right. And it would seem like this community is going to be the one that's going to be the authority on cloud native networks, really. And you're going to have optimization, you're going to have, so that's really it. So I would say this is the enterprise cloud native, and you would have to take what it is that's useful from here and apply it. And it's really just going to come down to that. So we can really say what the non-functional requirements are for enterprise cloud native, and then we could say, well, telco has these sets. And I was going to go a little bit more into this, but we're running out of time. So
I think we can always come back and, I mean, let's see where we are at the end. I think the main thing is we want to make sure we just give, share some information about this initiative. And of course, I think we know many of the faces that are here today. We've seen each other in many different forums and different places, so we know that some of these challenges still exist and that we need to work together to continue to move forward. I just want to take a very quick minute to just say, who is the CNTI community? As I mentioned already, this is not something that, it started within LFN in January, but this has been going on in the CNCF world for quite some time. So there are a number of contributors in the past, and I think it would be wrong to just say, well, that was in the old days, it doesn't really matter now, because much of what we have today in terms of assets that we've brought under the LFN umbrella is the work and the culmination of work from many people, different companies and end users. So, service providers, TELUS, Orange, Deutsche Telecom, they've been helping us with different aspects of best practices and recommendations, helping in addressing white papers, things that, are helping us to look at what are some of the remaining challenges. We have vendors, F5, Tito Every, MATRIXX, Samsung, a number, and these are companies that are involved right now, still trying to move this forward. And helping us in development process additional tests in the test suite. And then we have other cloud native maintainers as well who provide specific tests in the areas like security or resilience. So we're trying to leverage that, right? And so just an opportunity to say thank you to everyone who's helped us so far. I'd like to see a lot more with us along the way. I'm just going to take, again, I know in the interest of time, and I would like to leave us some time for some more questions at the end. We started in January. Some of the accomplishments that we have made so far is, what have we been focused on? Well, as a new community, we've been doing a lot of outreach. And I want to really emphasize the fact that CNTI will not succeed as an island, okay? I believe it really strongly, and I think most of the, those of us who are working in CNTI believe our success will come through strong collaboration with other projects and other communities, even outside of LFN. So we've been sharing our vision. We've been sharing, what is the value proposition, what are some of the challenges, and looking for areas of common interest, right? And where we can collaborate. Where, hate to use the word, sorry, win-win situation for us both. We've also been working on, as I mentioned, the beta certification. So take this opportunity to say thanks to the vendors who are part of that. It is a beta. If you're interested and would like to join, that would be something that we would encourage you to do. Even if you don't ultimately want to do certification, you can start to learn some of the tools that we're offering and start to work with that. We're also looking at our certification program and discussing, there's a fine balance there. And that is really about encouraging vendors who are on a cloud native journey to step up and start to work on certification, even if they're not ready 100%. And at the same time, we're trying to drive end user confidence. Right? We want them to be able to adopt network functions that are going to deliver the benefits that they expect. And so we have to continually make that certification, or we'll need to make that certification more demanding. So I think it's really about trying to find a balance, and it might result in things like tiered approaches. You probably heard the gold, silver, bronze, or something in that level, ready for production, not ready for production. We'll look at some different options there in terms of making this a vibrant certification program. This is probably pretty obvious, so why would we want a certification? So again, we're looking at demonstrating commitment to vendor-neutral, cloud-native networking, underlying infrastructure certified Kubernetes. We know not everything's there, and that's why when I showed you the value prop, a lot of those end users on the right-hand side will continue to specialize and take opinionated approaches to the remaining pieces where there are gaps. We know that. But we do want to help create confidence. So let's not underestimate that there is a lot of value from cloud native, and those behaviors are things that many operators are looking to achieve, and they were telling us about that in the latest things I mentioned, like the white papers and the manifesto. If we look a little bit about where we're going for the remainder of the year, we will continue with outreach. That is absolutely important, the collaboration with other projects, other communities. We want to expand the best practices and tests. We'd like to move forward on our certification, so we'll see where we are and move out of the beta with that. And equally importantly, we want to work and support other vendors to start using these tools and help them also on the journey. Because again, we're thinking a bit of this from an industry perspective, not just about CNTI members or LFN members, but really trying to encourage others that are in the space to move forward. Ultimately, we want to drive that confidence with the end users and increasing their commitment into this community. So if what you've heard today sounds interesting, or if you don't agree with it, that's okay. We're going to encourage you to continue to follow us, engage with us, because that's how we as a community will also grow. We have 2 DNTF sessions on Friday. Tito Every is going to be leading those efforts and has kindly set up 2 different versions. One which is basically going to be an introductory session. So if you're not familiar at all with what we've been doing, or even from previous time with CNCF, this is really kind of the opener and help you getting started. For your more advanced users who may be involved, ready to want to start contributing, we do have a deep dive session as well. Both those are on Friday. QR codes are there if you could scan them. I forgot to mention the slides are also in Schedule, so you should be able to get all the links that you need. And so lastly, but certainly not least, we're hoping that when you get back home, that you're going to want to join CNTI, that you're going to want to engage with us. So again, all these links, they're in the presentation, in the slides. And as I mentioned to you, we have 3 different focus areas. So those are 3 different meetings per week. You don't have to join them all. Join the ones where you feel like you have the strongest interest or have the largest ability to contribute or even challenge us, okay? That's what we want. Yeah, with that, I'm going to say thanks, and we've got a few minutes left, so let's, if there's still some questions and some newcomers, join in, please. We'll take questions.
I have a serious question.
Yes.
I'm not just all fun and games. The certification, much as I think they're a good idea, I can just say etiquette assured, and the heartburn that went with that. So I would be cautious about considering a certification program.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. I would say this. I think if there's no end user demand for it, then there's absolutely no reason for a certification program. So I do agree with you. We've heard some operators who have expressed interest, but not quite ready yet. So I think that's where we've got to move past the not quite ready yet and make that concrete. But thanks, Beth. Appreciate that. Other thoughts, questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it. And we hope to see you maybe next week. Thank you.